simply analysis of the numbers. Because again, districts can find themselves in a tight financial time and turn it around all on their own. You hire really talented people, the ESTs help as well. My understanding of your desire to form this task force is to be transparent with your community and to get buy-in from the stakeholders that what you're doing is the right thing. So this is simply saying, we're going to let you look at the books on a regular basis. Which of these numbers do you want? Which do you feel are important? Anything missing?
I think it's somewhere in between.
Okay.
It's somewhere in between. I don't want the restriction of data points to only come from the business office.
Okay.
But to the point, I don't want a data point that can't be done because the data structure's not there. You don't have the things that go together. Right?
Sure.
Half a data or something like that. You know, that's what that consultation is after what I think we need to figure out if that data set is available. But I also, I want kind of a merger of here's recommendations, they can come up with something on their own, and we'll work to can you actually do it or not, but not have a restricted set of data sets to start with.
Sure, and that's where if this person from the ESD is available to be on there, they have access to the same numbers you use, so they could be actually pulling the data. They could assist with what metrics the data is already there, and then it's not the group saying, we're just eating what the district is serving. Is that, it's kind of...
Right, it's like there could be metrics that use the same underlying data, we just never looked at that metric in the same way before.
Yes.
And so it's a new metric, but the data is the same and the data is readily available.
I think that the bumpers that you as a board would put on those metrics is that the data is, the raw data is readily available. And it could be that the district says, here's 10 different metrics you could look at, or it could be, depending on if the sound person's there, they could lead that. But that's why in the charge, you put in the ID, and you can say in consultation with the business office and or the ESD, something like that. Okay. Anything else that's missing?
We did talk about audit review and questions under that. I don't know if you want to take it back.
So when was your last audit?
Recently.
So there's audit review, there's also brainstorming, budget, when the budget's being prepared for next year in the spring and those types of things. If you put other tasks assigned, it's going to take them a couple months to identify this stuff, build, and get in a rhythm. Once they do that, if you guys want input from them, you can say, here were the exit items from the audit, and we're contemplating doing X, Y, or Z. Let's put it to the task force and see which one they think would make the most sense. So then you're saying, you're asking for their input prior to making a decision. I would be hesitant to take an audit report from any government entity, a city, a county, a state, and the complexities involved in it. I'd be hesitant to take that and hand it to a group of people and say, what would you have us do about this? I would provide some structure, because again, you are the board, and you can't abdicate your authority in decision making if it's a blank slate. What do we do with this? And they come back and say, do X, and you as a board realize you can't, you have to do Y, you just disenfranchise them. And so now you're secretive and your transparency is gone. So just make sure that whatever you ask for is something that you can take genuine input on. So we've oftentimes had groups go out and bring suggestions forward that were not legal, that you just can't do. And then you have to explain it's not legal, and what they're not hearing is the violation of WAC or RCW. They're hearing that we just spent 2 months coming up with a solution and the board just shut it down in 30 seconds. So, we want to make sure we've got respect. Anything else on scope of authority or tasks or charge? Okay, how about thumbs? Thumbs up, down, sideways, how do I feel about it? Okay? Okay, so we've got objective, membership, scope, charge, duration, and frequency. So the duration, you have the ability to say that you're going to review, that this task force will be reviewed and annually, and determine if it's continued annually. So fiscal year end, your books are done, probably closed out in November. So you could, at November of each year, review whether or not the task force will be extended for another year. You can do it that way, or you can say the task force will be in place until we hit the objective. That's up to you. You do have the authority at any time to dissolve the task force, but if you do something other than what you put in this plan, it will not resonate well in the community. So that's your option as a board. If you want to review and reauthorize the task force for one more year every November, that's your year end, so that's really when your metrics is. Or if you want to keep it in existence. I can tell you, this is a 3 to 5 year process. So, what do you think? Pros and cons?
Well, we need at least, I mean, my thought was we need at least a 2 year. When we looked at what we were looking at from the budget, 1 year isn't going to be worthwhile. Next year for financing is going to be off the wall anyway. So we need at least 2 year when it continues after that. So I think it's 2 years with the annual renewal after that until we decide that we hit the fund balance.
So under duration, you could review in 11 of 20, right, which is 2 years from this November.
Yep.
And then review annually after that. Sure. What other thoughts?
So, and I was right along with you on the 2 years, like, it's gotta be at least 2 years, and then we said review annually, like, I like that review annually as well. So when we ask people then to be on this task force, are we then asking them to be on it for a solid 2 years?
Very good question.
So part of me goes, that would be great, because then you have consistency as you're going through, but that's also a huge commitment, and you.
Well, my concern was like I was on a giant 24-person task force last year. By the end, we're down to 12 people. So my concern is if we got a small task force, one in each, we need a process to replace people that have to drop out, basically.
Sure. If the membership is appointed by the board, but selected from within. So it's selected from within, appointed by the board. So the selected from within is you've got it's chicken and egg, what came first. You have to have the egg, which is these two members here, and then they select from within. So if somebody, let's say your local business person can't do it anymore, so then this group would identify another local business person, but they have to bring it forward as a recommendation to you to appoint them. And if for some reason you don't want to appoint the person they recommend, you could say recommend to, and you appoint. It's up to you how you do that. But you're right. There will be folks who will drop off.
But that can happen during a work session.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to happen during a regular board meeting. It's just-
For you to appoint someone on there, it has to be a board meeting.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna be.
We could do that.
Well, and that's where I think, like, if we want 10, do we do 12, thinking that we'll have at least 10 at all points in time, or at 95% of the points in time?
Something on that, because I feel like we are only, and if 4 people drop out, then we have to appoint them. And so we have to find a meeting to appoint them.
Well, there would be the process, right? So the committee would bring them forth, and they bring it to a board meeting, and then at the next board meeting, we're not doing any of the selection,
No,
we're
they
simply
have to
approving.
find-
They would have to find it, right?
You know who's missing here? You got parents. You've got classified search admin. tax base, you've got support authority, you've got historical knowledge. There's no student voice on there. Is there value in having a high school student?
Absolutely. Really trouble.
Yes.
So if you put student,
Will apply.
I'm already ready to apply.
how many students?
I would say two, yeah.
So that they'll
Okay.
belong.
That goes the
So now that's a 12. Remember, when you review, you're not just reviewing, does this continue? You're reviewing the entire plan. So you could say, the people who are on here until such time as you review. And when you review, in 11 of 20, you can decide that they stay on, or at that time you come up with a process for rotating people off, or what are their terms. But review is reviewing the whole thing. You could even change the charge, you could change all of that when you review. You're just trying to set something up to get you to 11/20 and see how it goes.
And as long as we note that we're expecting a 2-year commitment, ahead of time.
I think like,
Yeah.
Look clear on the application.
Yeah.
there should be 2-year commitments.
So before we do thumbs up on the duration piece and reach consensus on that, let's talk about frequency. They will probably need to meet 2 or 3 times before that first report out to the board. After that, they'll need to meet monthly. Once a month, they get together, look at the numbers, populate the data, and when they make the report, they might say, okay, here's the chart for salaries and benefits as compared to budgeted. So current month and year-to-date salaries and benefits compared to the budget that was passed. They're going to show it to you, but then they can also add some editorial about patterns they're seeing. So they need to meet for a couple hours once a month to just drop the, and maybe one of the members will do it on their own, drop it in, but they get there and they discuss what patterns they're seeing. Are they seeing an upswing? Are they seeing concern? And then their report to the board is, the dashboard is the dashboard, the numbers are the numbers, is their report to you is their thoughts and beliefs and reflections on review of the numbers. But that's where, let's say that they're just looking at monthly expenditures and they say, oh my gosh, we spent an extra $1 million last month out of the district office. That's top-heavy admin. Well, then Ben can say, no, that's our insurance premium for the year that's going into the district office. So it's that type of learning where they'll need to meet, do their pieces, and then they may have a few questions of the district office prior to going to the board. You don't want at a podium, you don't want a task force standing up saying, what was this extra $1 million spent on? And then Ben getting up and saying, well, that was the insurance premium, and they're saying, oh, and the whole citizens group is looking at, and the audience is looking at you guys like there's a disconnect. So there needs to be a connection prior to that report to the board. So it will take a few months to get that honed in, but when you do, after that, it should be a monthly meeting. So the commitment might be two hours a month, and plus a board meeting.
It would be helpful for me if you could clarify district role in this, because you talked about having the co-presentation, and you talked about kind of cohesion in this work, so it's not kind of competing information or lack of cohesion. How does that happen if we're not a part of the task force? And I'm not saying we should be, but just help me clarify how that happens, how we have these conversations, when does that take place?
Sure, so let's say that, when's your last board meeting of the month? Fourth Wednesday. So let's say that by the second Wednesday of the month, you would have the data from the previous month. That's realistic, right?
Cut that close.
Okay, so maybe you say by the third Wednesday, they meet, they populate, they meet, they develop any questions, they talk about patterns, any questions that they have about patterns, or they share their thoughts, they send it to the business office. So the business office has a couple days before the board meeting to be able to respond to any patterns. And it may be, hey, it looks great, or maybe, hey, what was this $1 million? And so you can tell them. But there's got to be some type of a connection via email or maybe a phone call that answers some questions. So there is a little bit of a lift for the business office, but it's not a sky's the limit piece.
I just want clarity.
There is a concern on how this can all go very sideways in an open public meeting. Absolutely. There can be a group who has some of the information and not all of it, and will, with some of the information, have unanswered questions that they ask in public. There's always answers, they can ask that in public, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But what it projects to the public is that your business office and your task force aren't connected. So there would need to be some mechanism when they're doing the monthly report to the board. Prior to that, in the detail here, there'll need to be something along the lines of consultation or a discussion back and forth with the business office. You don't want one dashboard where one group is saying it says this and the other group is saying it says something different.